Alright, everybody. So, if you've been watching me, you might have heard one of my rants about how when I was younger, particularly YouTube, was just a lot better. The user experience, as a viewer, was just better. And from what I could tell, it really does seem like the content creator experience was just better. And this is true in a variety of ways. For starters, something that I've brought up pretty often is the old YouTube layout for large channels. If you were a YouTube partner back in the day, you had so many customization options for your YouTube channel, like the homepage of your YouTube channel. It was insane. Let me show you something. Old YouTube Yogscast homepage. I've got two here that are pretty good. So first we have this one. This was the Yogscast old layout on their channel. You had obviously your own like full background that you could have as a custom border. Links to all of your different like other sites here as buttons that you can put anywhere on the page. Links to all of the other channels that you affiliate with as your like I recommend these people go here, having their own like special like layout up here. A very like understandable and well-made format and layout that's very easy to understand, and it worked well. From what I remember, it worked well. And this is actually the less good version. Like, that version's the shittier version after a few updates. This was their original one back when YouTube really let you customize. Back when they did WoW content. This is like the level of customization that you could do on YouTube. On your main homepage. You want to see another one? Let's see if I can find one for another big YouTube channel. How about Smosh? Yeah, oh yeah, you guys remember this one. Oh yeah. Who here remembers this? That's not their website, that's YouTube. That is what Smosh's channel, when you clicked on their YouTube channel, that is what it took you to. This is their YouTube channel layout. It was overwhelmingly customizable to a degree that every big YouTuber you watched had their own extremely recognizable page that even just upon looking at this image, I have been blasted with nostalgia and like a recognizable like image, like feeling of recognizability that I have not felt in a decade just by seeing this image for the first time. That is how effective it was. Like, I didn't just remember what the channel was or what their profile picture was or what the personalities were like. I could even remember their channel layout, and it was part of their branding. It was part of their aesthetic. It lended legitimacy to the fact that they genuinely cared about their content and they put work into it, you know? It was something about old YouTube that I really, really, really liked. It allowed each content creator to have their own, identity online, right? Their own very recognizable identity. But then, YouTube started to change. Supporting something like this started to be more cost than it was worth, despite the fact that the way that it was integrated, like, very reasonably allowed, like, ad space on you. Like, see this ad? You wouldn't even notice this, but it's there. The problem is this ad probably wasn't worth very much to the company. And so that's why you don't see ads like this as much anymore. But that said, YouTube used to give you so many more options, but it started to become more expensive than it was worth to maintain this feature, so they gutted it. It was slow and it was steady, but they gutted it. There are many other examples of channels that had really cool layouts like this I could show, and this is just one example of the cool, uniqueness the internet used to have. It used to be much less sterilized. And I know when people say sterilized about the internet, it sounds like they're talking about like, oh, you can't say the N-word or whatever. No, I mean, just in the aesthetic and the vibe, the internet feels like a sterile, like, stainless steel hallway. When back in the day, it felt more like a school hallway with a bunch of corkboard on the walls and a bunch of people's different pieces of paper pinned up on it. You know, different types of paper, different, like, printer paper, notebook paper, pens, pencils, fucking markers being written with, all different drawings and works of art and posts and writings. Like, that's how the internet felt back in the day. Now it feels like this bland, sanitized, stainless steel hallway. That's really the only way I know how to describe it. Like, to put it into words, the vibe that it gives off, you know? Very apt description. I'm glad you guys think so. The reason why I started by talking about this is because it kind of leads into the fact that the internet has been getting worse. A lot of you watching are probably younger, though I know I've got a lot of older people watching too, but the younger people watching probably don't remember what the internet was really like 10, 12, 15 years ago. Because it used to be nice. It was really, really nice. And it was obviously toxic, but it allowed a certain level of customizability and creativity as the default that is no longer expected. There's a very uniform, regimented, standard layout. Everything is expected to follow. Nowadays, if you go to a website and it looks like how websites looked back then, you assume it's a badly made website, right? Because the standard has been made this sort of like hard line, extremely sleek, minimalist aesthetic, which I like in some respects, but God, do I kind of miss how, you know, old YouTube was. But it expands outside of that because, of course, as time goes by and corporate interests continuously tighten their grip around the internet, the last free frontier, we're going to see a lot of things that we honestly have kind of taken for granted. I think we've kind of taken for granted the fact that platforms like Twitter and Reddit and whatnot have been such mainstays for so long, when prior to their release, it was usually that like every 3 or 4 years, people were jumping to a new platform as being the it platform, you know? Like it was like Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, and Instagram that were like the big ones that hit and have just kind of maintained a ridiculous amount of staying power, despite the fact that everything that came before them really didn't have a long lifespan. Like MySpace maybe was big for a few years, maybe like 5 years MySpace was big. You guys in chat can tell me, I wasn't really big into MySpace. The fact that now all of our social media-ing has been consolidated to a very few platforms that we have become extremely attached to, and not only attached to, but invested in. I can't afford to just pack it up and leave YouTube if something happens, like, and not take a massive hit to my finances. If YouTube decides that they just don't like me and they want to ban me, like, tough shit, my career's done pretty much. An unfortunate fact of the corporatization of the internet. And a lot of the cases here, as these platforms get larger, people running these sites, operating the moderation staff, is not something you're going to be able to reasonably expect. It's going to be bots. It's going to be algorithms running these sites, enforcing the rules. And we've seen how all these different sites have been getting worse and worse and worse, in large part due to their standardization. That's really what it was at the end of the day, the standardization for the sake of corporate profit, because corporate profit likes standardization. They like everything to be the same. But there was one site pretty well known for not falling into that area. A mainstream site, I should say. And that was Reddit. Reddit allows you to make individual communities that you join voluntarily, and it doesn't bombard you, generally. I mean, prior to, you know, recent updates, it doesn't bombard you with shit you don't care about or want to see. You look for things when you want to be shown new stuff by the algorithm, but for the most part, the site itself allowed for a very private social media experience, a much more curated social media experience, and it felt very sincere and earnest as far as like large social media platforms go. But Reddit is now in trouble. Reddit may be facing the end of its days. The Reddit blackout explained. Thousands of communities on the social media site Reddit went dark in an apparent protest of new fees. The outrage focuses on new charges that Reddit levied on the developers of third-party apps. Wait, sign up for NPR's full newsletter? What do you mean? I can't read the full thing? Are you kidding me? NPR? Okay, I guess we can listen to the audio. It says I can listen to it, so I guess we'll just listen to it. Let's sit back, relax, and listen, I suppose, because I guess I have to sign up for NPR's newsletter in order to read past the first paragraph, so let's hope we can listen past the first paragraph.
Thousands of communities on the website Reddit have gone dark. It's apparently a protest by many users. Behind the protest is a big question across the internet. Who pays and who profits from social media? It would be hard to read about this issue in parts of Reddit today, so NPR's Bobby Allen explains it right here.
The drama at Reddit is over something that sounds so technical it would send most people to sleep. An application programming interface, or API. It's understandable if you hear that and think, what? Think of it this way, though. A digital bouncer guarding the Reddit website.
There would be a bouncer in front of Reddit, and I would say, hey, bouncer, could you ask Reddit for all the comments on like this post I'm looking for? Or could you give me all the posts in a specific subreddit?
That's Christian Seelig, a 29-year-old who lives in Nova Scotia. He developed one of the most popular third-party Reddit apps called Apollo about 8 years ago. At the time, there was no official Reddit app.
I started building it after I graduated university and I finished an internship at Apple. So I was kind of looking for what to do next. And I really love Reddit. So a new Reddit app kind of felt like the natural thing to try to build.
And his app became popular and now has 1.5 million users a month, which is only a fraction of Reddit's traffic since it's one of the most popular sites on the internet.
Now here's an interesting little tidbit. This developer of this Apollo add-on, which is essentially something that allows Reddit to be more user-friendly for people, who's being like screwed over by this fee, there was a private call that this individual had with some higher-ups at Reddit. And I believe the developer is Canadian and was in a not like a one-party consent like state or province. This is coming from Linus Tech Tips. I like to listen to their podcast, so they were talking about this recently. And he recorded the call that he had with those higher-ups at Reddit. And in that call, the call was with the CEO, the Reddit CEO. Sorry, not just higher-ups, the Reddit CEO. And the Reddit CEO ends up lying about what the developer of Apollo says in a public post. So the developer of the Apollo app, who recorded the call on his end, drops the recording calling out the blatant lies of the CEO of Reddit, and the CEO of Reddit himself replies to the evidence of with the recorded call that everyone's now like, holy shit, the CEO of Reddit's a piece of shit. The CEO of Reddit replies to that saying like a really snarky, passive-aggressive comment about how the post is a joke. Like that the post was a joke. Not like as an insult, but like that the person was joking. At least that was my read of their comment. It was very bizarre. Yeah, it was very, very bizarre. I fucking hate that guy, based on what I've seen of him. Who would have thought that the CEO of Reddit would be as insufferable as your average Reddit user?
Internet. Seelig's app works by going to the Reddit bouncer, getting the okay to grab data, and loading what's happening on Reddit on his app. Until now, that process has been free. But now if you want Reddit data, you gotta pay the bouncer.
For virtually all apps, the pricing is so high that things would either have to drastically change or things would have to shut down.
Seelig's back-of-the-envelope calculation was that he'd have to pay Reddit $20 million a year to keep the app going. The app's annual revenue does not come anywhere near that, so he's announcing his app is going out of business.
It is really brutal because I love building this app, and for it to just suddenly, like, within 2 weeks for it just all crumble to nothing is, yeah, it really hurts.
Reddit has explained the new fees by saying it's time for third-party developers to pay their fair share. CEO Steve Huffman has said that popular AI services like ChatGPT scrape Reddit for its wealth of online conversations, and that Reddit doesn't get anything from that arrangement. The new focus on making money
A large part of this has to do with the fact that the internet is not as profitable of a place as people thought it was going to be. A lot of corporations thought social media platforms like YouTube and Twitter and Twitch and whatnot are going to be massive game changers for advertising. When these platforms first blew up, they thought, oh my god, running ads on these YouTube videos that kids are going to be watching all day and night, like just running a mid-roll, like, oh my god, and it's the internet. Like, it doesn't matter where they are in the world. They're going to see the ads. They have to either click to skip it, which means they're going to see the ad. Like, it must have seemed like it was going to be the biggest revolutionary advancement in advertising of all time when it first started to happen. But very quickly, it became clear that these advertiser dollars being spent by these companies were not worth as much as was being spent. And ever since the original implementation of the YouTube Partner Program, we have watched slowly as the value of like one click has gone down. It varies depending on the content creator. You have something called a CPM on your channel, which is basically like YouTube determines how advertiser friendly your content is, and then that kind of generalizes how many ads are being played on your content and how much they're worth, and what companies are willing to advertise. Typically the higher paying ads are a little bit more stingy about what content they're willing to advertise on, and obviously that improves your CPM, the amount of money each like view is worth, right? And the average CPM has been going down since the implementation of the YouTube Partner Program. And, you know, as a YouTuber, obviously I've noticed it. Thankfully, it's not been a really big deal to me. But if you go back to 2017, look at the adpocalypses. Look at, like, think back to when PewDiePie said the N-word on stream. One guy said the N-word on a bridge in PUBG, and it, like, caused every YouTuber to make 30% less money from that point on, like, in perpetuity, and it's been dropping since that point. Like, it was just, like, a drop of, like, 30+% in ad revenue for every content creator across the board, and it never recovered. Because PewDiePie, the biggest YouTuber at the time, said the N-word on a bridge in a video game. Yeah, basically, except when you're using the app, you're still using Reddit. Yeah, but it doesn't matter, though, because Reddit wants to... As I said, corporate interest prefers a very regimented standardization. On surface level, there was nothing wrong with every YouTuber being able to make their own, like, customized YouTube page. But it just wasn't worth the hassle of managing it, backing it up, and having to support how much data is being, like, loaded onto a page and transmitted by saving that and having all of the like, background images and the custom layouts and everything. To have everybody's page be a simple, sleek, minimalist, all the same for everyone's channel layout is just easier. It means they have to pay less people. And so that's what they do. They want to standardize it because it just makes things easier. Even if there's nothing difficult now, it could make things easier in the future, so that's what they're going to do. For these companies, it's all about putting in the least amount of work they have to create the worst service they can, and for people to still use it. That's their goal.
Money comes as Reddit sets its sights on taking the company public later this year. Some discussion groups, known as subreddits, are going dark for 48 hours, others for longer. The aim is to bring Reddit to the negotiating table. Chris Mason is the moderator of a popular subreddit, Explain Like I'm 5, which is taking part in the boycott. He says third-party apps help him remove nasty comments quickly.
You have users who are particularly egregious, like very rude or those kinds of things. You can ban them directly from their comments.
I like how the head mod for the subreddit about asking a question and being explained the answer like you're a 5-year-old because you really just don't get it and you need it explained very simplistically. They brought that guy on to explain this whole thing. The guy who's the moderator of the subreddit for explaining complicated topics like you would to a 5-year-old to people who ask about it. That's great.
Comment on some of these apps, but you can't do that on the Reddit app.
Reddit says it's made some exceptions to the new fees. It says it will still provide free access to its data to apps that help with accessibility, and access to researchers and academics will also remain free. Bobby Allen, NPR News.
So, a lot of Reddit communities have gone completely down. For, in some cases, just 24 hours, for many, 48 hours, and some are never going back up unless there are massive changes made. And Reddit and its CEO acquiesce to the desires of these protesters. Like, the users of the site are protesting. And honestly, at this point, there's a few amount of communities that might never return unless the CEO is ousted. Because that CEO really made a dick of himself. Outed himself as a blatant liar and a petty asshole in response to being called out for blatantly lying. Apparently, Reddit's in a pretty bad place in terms of their finances. Reddit CEO tells employees that the subreddit blackout will pass. Yeah. Apparently, he's having to reinsure the employees at Reddit, oh, this isn't going to destroy the company. Reddit CEO tells employees that subreddit blackout, quote unquote, will pass. Quote unquote, I'm sorry to say this, but please be mindful of wearing Reddit gear in public, CEO Steve Huffman says in an internal memo. Some folks are really upset, and we don't want you to be the object of their frustrations. Wow. The CEO's now saying people who are protesting this are going to assault Reddit employees. Wow. What an absolute scum. Yeah, I hope this CEO gets ousted. What an absolute scum piece of shit. You know this guy wants to be the next Elon Musk.